What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Debbie Rao YouTube channel. It's not just my ugly mug today. I pulled my friend Christian Williams out of the dugout, and we got a pinch hitter here. So we're gonna be diving into a little this or that. So we did these a little bit last offseason, and what we're gonna be looking at is you're on the clock. Who are you drafting? We're gonna be looking at players in your rookie drafts and Debbie drafts. But today we got a rookie draft one for you. So if you're in a rookie draft, stick around. We're gonna be talking about JSN or Jahmyr Gibbs. All right, so let's dive into it. You're in a rookie draft. These two guys are going neck and neck into the ADP. So we're going to get into them and dive into them and see what you guys think here. And, we're both on different sides of this argument today. So that's what's going to be fun here. It was shocking. Me and Christian are on different sides of an argument here. But let's get into it. Let's go. So look at his ADP right now. And this is based on Football Guys ADP, the rookie drafts that I do. Jahmyr Gibbs going running back to 104 right now. Jaxon Smith-Njigba 105. This can fluctuate, depends on the quarterbacks and where they go here. Is this consistently what you're seeing in your leagues, Christian?
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on roster construction. I think some people will flip that, but it's always wide receiver 1, RB2. I haven't actually seen anything different in terms of the order of their position that they're being taken.
Yeah. So and sometimes Gibbs goes early. I saw him goes early as 102. So like realistically, it just really does depend on that. But these two guys, I've had more questions about these two guys. Who do I draft here than anybody else? That's why we wanted to dive into it. So those are their ADP. Here's their college production. So we're gonna be talking about each one of these guys. And I gave them their colors of their NFL team. So don't yell at me, Ohio State fans out there. But what did you see from? So you're gonna be diving into Jaxon Smith, but real quick in college, what did you notice about Jaxon Smith-Njigba overall, his profile, and what stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people kind of already know that Jaxon Smith-Njigba was one of the most productive wide receivers 2 years ago, battled injuries in 2022, and so we had kind of a year where we didn't. There's a lot of unknowns. Jaxon Smith-Njigba got kind of profiled as this slot-only wide receiver because of where he was utilized and how he won, and he gained 1,200 yards out of the slot primarily. But he's got a lot of different skills that should translate to being more than that at the NFL level. He's got incredible short area agility. He's got an insane release. It's not always prevalent on his college film, but in the reps that you do get to see it, you can see where, okay, a team drafted him in the top 20. The Seahawks took him at pick number 20. They're probably not just drafting a slot receiver. They're looking at a kind of a successor to Tyler Lockett and being that inside out type of guy. In terms of what he can do with the football in his hands, I mean, you're looking at a guy that could be an elite yards after the catch guy with insane hands. He's very, very consistent, especially across the middle in contested catch situations. So I really liked everything that I saw from Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and I know you actually had him as your wide receiver 1 throughout the process. I flipped back and forth here and there because I do love me some Quentin Johnston, but he finished as my wide receiver 1, and I think rightfully so.
Yeah, and I think, with Gibbs too, so you look at his college production. I mean, the biggest thing is you should know from 21 to 22, if you're not degenerates like us, we're talking about rookies, like he flipped from Georgia Tech to Alabama. And we saw kind of a different kind of player, definitely receiving upside though, as you can tell. And it definitely, rushing upside there. Like he's a PPR dream. Like when you're looking at it, that's what Gibbs is going to be. And that is why you're seeing him go so high in these rookie drafts and his draft capital. So Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Gibbs, both first round guys. But Gibbs got drafted 12 overall. And I think realistically that shot him up dynasty boards. And that really solidified it. Most people said, hey, mid-second, early second, maybe sneaks into the Eagles. And all of a sudden the Lions just said, screw that. We're going old school and drafting Gibbs there. So we got a landing spots here. We obviously see that. We're going to dive into it. So Gibbs with the Lions, JSN with the maybe not the greatest landing spot overall, but going over Gibbs. So I'm going to be talking about Gibbs a little bit. We're talking about the depth chart right now. So overall, I think, he has Montgomery there. Dave Montgomery is going to be that piece that probably eats into maybe his red zone volume and his carries. But overall, really, it's Gibbs Montgomery. They shipped Swift off. Now they have Craig Reynolds there. You're not looking at a depth chart that isn't obtainable by him to be the running back 1. I think another thing to note too, when you're looking at the depth chart, Jameson Williams is going to be suspended for 6 games. For the betting, and Gibbs is going to be a guy that gets involved early and often in this offense. And if he can take over that backfield with Jameson being out and kind of show that he needs to be a valuable piece where they can feed him the ball, we're going to see that usage go up pretty early on. I mean, when you're just looking at the depth chart overall, production timeline, I mean, he's going to have immediate production. I can't see them using the 12th overall pick and not giving him carries. And I know that they're done with Swift, but this is different. Gibbs is their guy. They've taken a lot of flack for that. So immediately out the door, you're probably looking at a little bit more production on Gibbs' side from JSN. I know we'll probably maybe argue about that, but overall, I would expect 2023 to be more of a Gibbs area. Team fit, I love the fit with what he has. And you're looking at this, like the Lions gave the running backs 115 targets in 2022. Shout out Christian for that deep knowledge there. Swift's target share was 13%. So when you're looking at that, he's going to maybe be more efficient with those touches going forward. And you got to put him in there. In my opinion, my rankings in Dynasty, he's running back 4 overall. And I mean, that might be hot takey. I don't know where he's at in your Dynasty rankings for that. But he's top 6, 7 right now. Like, you have to put him in there based on where the usage is going to be. So that's where looking forward. Like, that's the Dynasty outlook. That's his value if he can get that usage.
Yeah, and then moving over to Jaxon Smith-Njigba, we talked about maybe the landing spot wasn't the greatest, but I do think when you're looking long term, Tyler Lockett's 30 years old. I think obviously DK Metcalf is a piece of their team, and they plan to build around that, but also he's walking into an immediate starting role. I think they're going to run a little more 3 wide receiver sets now that he is there. A lot of teams won't tell you that they didn't run a personnel set because they didn't have the personnel for it. Now they do. They have 3 wide receivers. I think they'll move out of that 12 personnel tendency that they had last year. So overall, you're looking at a guy that walks into a starting role. Production timeline, though, that's where I think it gets a little hazy because there's not going to be a ton of targets to go around, assuming that Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf keep the same target share. Now, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, to me, is a player that can take away some from those 2 players. And so I think you're looking at a guy that could produce early. You might not see that top level of fantasy performance, but I think you could get wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 weeks, and he'll be in a lot of lineups. And I think it's really going to hurt Tyler Lockett once we get down to it. Yeah. Team fit, I think it's a perfect fit in terms of what they want to do. I know they want to run the ball a lot, and they drafted another running back to prove that. But I do think that this offense is efficient and very well run in the way they get their wide receivers the ball. So I think that's fine there. And then in terms of dynasty outlook, I think Jaxon Smith-Njigba is on the borderline of being a top 12 receiver for me. I think he's maybe 13, but I may have bumped him up following the draft, which sounds crazy when I just talked about the landing spot. But when you start to think about, what the wide receiver position looks like, there are some aging guys that are going to start to fall out. And so I think we're looking at a guy that can be a number 1 wide receiver on your fantasy roster here in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, he's 14 for me right now. But you're right. I mean, with Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, all kind of in the category of like maybe aging out, you're looking at that fit there. All right. So what we're going to do here, and we want to help you guys. So the idea of these videos is to talk about like, hey, who are you drafting? Because I get this question a lot. So we're gonna throw it through Christian first. You're on the clock, and we've all been in this situation, probably a lot of us already. Who are you drafting here based on their dynasty upside? You're on the clock, and you're okay. Now, no, don't give me that team fit answer either. Don't give me that. Oh well, it's team construction fit. Put you on the spot a little bit. Who do you want?
The real answer is that they're in the same tier and they're back to back for me. But if I had to choose, just my roster is great and I'm just adding another great player, I'm going to take Jaxon Smith-Njigba personally. I think that overall, when you're looking at what a wide receiver's lifespan is at the NFL level, and when you look at the lack of run that he actually got in college because of that injury. Now, I know the injury thing might scare some people. That actually, to me, just means that he's played less football and he might have a longer career. When you look at what he does on a football field, I also think you're looking at a guy that can sustain production for a very long time. I know early on he was drawing Keenan Allen comps. He's clearly more athletic than Keenan Allen, but when you look at what Keenan Allen's been able to sustain into his 30s, early 30, I think, but you're still looking at a player that I think will be on your roster and producing for a long time, whereas we know what the running backs are, but you might have a different take here.
Well, I'm gonna lean Gibbs a little bit, and this is crazy for me because I'm a JSN guy. I want everybody to know I love JSN still. I still would be happy with JSN. But if I'm sitting on the clock here and I'm looking at Gibbs, one thing that kind of gears me towards Gibbs more than JSN is I don't like Geno Smith. There's a lot of people on Geno Smith bandwagon, and I think that there should be question marks about him moving forward as the quarterback option. I think that is a concern. Can he support 3 guys? Can he support 2 after Lockett maybe leaves? And it's not a guarantee that they just go with JSN and DK. They might add somebody else to that offense like they've obviously wanted to. And I just don't know if Geno can handle it. I just don't see Geno as being that major option. So you flip it to Gibbs. I think Gibbs gives you versatility as a trade value as well, because just with the running back market, the running back market is volatile. But if Gibbs puts up the numbers that we expect him to do, even if it's not like top 3 numbers, he's still going to be valued as a top 6 guy. And wide receivers, we just see tons of these guys go. Marvin Harrison Jr. next year is going to be a top 5 guy more than likely. I think he's number 3 in Christian's the combined rankings already, right? So when you're looking at that, like you're looking at, I think the running backs, even next year's running back class, there's some question marks in next year's running back class. Gibbs could hold that value for 2 years. And realistically, what are you looking for at that position? And I think Gibbs can be an anchor guy. So like if you have a anchor running back build or a roster build, he could be a guy that you build around, and maybe you ship off a couple of your older running backs off your roster and you can build around Gibbs. I think you can do that for 2 to 3 years, where JSN's a great piece, but I feel like Gibbs is the move based on just value and what you can do with him on your dynasty roster. JSN's a fine piece though. You're still good with having him there. But that would be my overall argument. You have a rebuttal there?
No, and that's, I always think of this stuff in tiers. And like I said, these 2 are at the very top of my 3rd tier. Bijan's in his own. But I think that when you're looking at your roster and what you specifically need, like if you're a team that has Breece Hall and Jonathan Taylor, which those teams exist, but if you are one of those teams, then I would lean JSN clearly. But if you're a team that does have, Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook, I might lean Gibbs because I want to get younger at that position. So it is, variable, but just based on talent alone, I'd still take JSN, but I get it.
All right. Well, we're fighting, but that's all right. That's what we usually do. Let us know in the comments. Who would you grab and who have you grabbed? Like, are you grabbing Gibbs? Are you going after JSN? How does that look like? I'd be remiss not to say, join our Patreon because, we do good work and we work our ass off for you guys. If you like fantasy football, you like combined rankings, you like dynasty rankings, we have it all. Debbie rankings there. So appreciate you guys. We will see you guys next time.